This video is about Skyrim. Really? But before we talk about Skyrim, I would like to talk to you about another game. Team Fortress 2. Now, I made 2 Team Fortress 2 videos, and that means I am contractually obligated to mention it in every other video I make, or else the Team Fortress 2 community will destroy my soul. But also, Team Fortress 2 and Skyrim have something in common. You can hit the tilde key and do this. You can even do this. Whoa, mama. Maybe it's a bit too much. Yes, this innocuous little connection, which may not seem like it's very important, actually highlights a very staunch, very deep-rooted commitment both of these games have to player modding and player customization. And effectively what we're going to do is, as I regale you about my tales through Skyrim, I'm going to make a series of arguments as to why I think modding is important, why I think it should stay, why I think it should stay free, and why I think it should stay open. Because like I just said, modding is important. Whether it be overhauling the entire game into something that's basically entirely new, or just to change how big your guns are on your screen, and of course all of that starts with Skyrim. And before I started Skyrim, I decided to do some research. Luckily, I am a cracker, and all of my friends are white, so all of them have played Skyrim, naturally. And I heard a lot of talk about Skyrim having a very elongated, kind of obnoxious introduction, so I prepared myself to go through an entire feature-length movie so that I could play a video game, but turns out I didn't have to because I was saved by that most powerful of mystical entities, the bisected horse. Now, the myth of the bisected horse is well known, so I don't need to explain it, but for some reason, every time I tried to play through this introduction, this horse just kept exploding, and I wasn't able to start the game. But luckily, this highlights one of the first major strengths of modding, and that's part 1, the ability to fix problems with games. Now this really doesn't need much of an explanation. Software is weird. Sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes people just kinda trust it and put a lot of money into it. Sometimes it ends the world. Crazy stuff. And sometimes it just kinda breaks because it feels like it. And obviously, mods have the ability to correct these errors. Because frankly, in this form, modding is basically just indie debugging. Fun fact, game developers are not the only people with computer science degrees, and some people who don't have a computer science degree can also work with software. And these people are just as capable of fixing issues with games as game developers are. Sometimes they're not as efficient, and sometimes they're more efficient. And modding can fix any number of different kinds of issues. Many games have community patches that make them more playable, especially on modern hardware for older games, than they are just at release or as of their latest patches. Now, of course, as a member of the video game journalism community, I don't know why anybody would ever want to play one of those icky, dirty old games instead of one of the newest products released by our benevolent overlords over at EA, but sometimes people do, and being able to actually make those games function or play it like a real resolution, or play it like a real frame rate, can be a godsend. Like, if it wasn't for these alternate start mods, I couldn't play Skyrim. And another notorious example of a game being made playable by modding is Dark Souls 1. And if you don't know what it was like to play Dark Souls 1 without DS Fix, and you would like to know, open up a copy of Dark Souls 1 and then hit your head against your desk, or just Alt F4 the game at random points while you're playing. And it can work for multiplayer games too. Team Fortress 2 is a game from 2007, which runs like crap, mostly because of all of the hats they added. But one modder has a series of fixes that drastically improves performance. And while you can't apply these to your live game, there is a custom client you can download to see them in action, and allows you to see that this competitive shooter from 2007 can run at higher than 90 FPS on your 3080. And if that's not good enough for you, there's also a configuration you can download from that same modder that helps to improve your performance. It's not perfect, but it is better than not having it, which helps make TF2 run at least a little bit more like it should. But yes, luckily for me, I was able to start my game of Skyrim, thanks to the help of modders. So I decided to start playing the game permadeath. After all, I can just make a new character with this awesome new menu, and randomize stuff about them if I choose to. It also let me start basically without gear, which I thought was interesting. Having to go and find my own weapons, using whatever I find, scrounging around for different things, made things more interesting. And having to eat and not being able to just teleport places took care of the problem of the open world for me. Normally, the problem with an open world for me is that it's a lot of nothingness and then something that actually matters. And rarely does that nothingness actually do anything substantial or is fun to walk around in my opinion. It's very pretty, but it's not very fun. But with the survival mod and with permadeath, suddenly the world is much more important. Suddenly you've got to worry about a lot of stuff. You've got to worry about the enemies that you're going to meet. You've got to worry about having food. You've got to worry about the temperature of the locations you're going to. You've got to worry about having a place to sleep. You can't just walk into some dangerous area. You cannot just be fucking around with frost trolls. They do not care anymore. They will body you. So the game becomes far more interesting. Almost kind of like playing a different game mode, really, like a hard mode. And that's yet another major positive of modding. You can make your own game modes. Or more broadly, you can change the game mode to better suit your desires, sometimes even creating something new in the process. And once again, this is not something where the benefits of it really need to be said. Some of the biggest games ever made, some entire genres have been made, changing around the rules of other games, and even if not every new game mode is some giant genre, industry warping thing, sometimes they're just cool. Like Dota was originally just a mod for Warcraft, Team Fortress was a mod for Quake, and frankly I don't think I need any more examples. Dota's influence over the world of gaming is large to say the least. Like, man, just look at all those ruined lives. Imagine having the power to make a game that could kill more families than drunkenness. But yeah, again, this is not something I really need to explain the benefits of. Allowing people to make their own game modes and to host them on their own servers or into their own lobbies is just neat, and you never know what you're going to come up with. Is Surf going to change the world? No, but it's cool. I mean, for somebody. Is DayZ cool? No, but it is going to change the world. And that's why testing out new game modes is cool, and luckily for the most part this is something that game developers still agree upon. Halo has Forge, now, and Overwatch has their workshop thing that allows you to mess around with the game in some pretty interesting ways to create your own game modes. That being said, it's still a far cry from being able to host your own server, have your own maps, stuff like that, but it's still pretty good. I would still say though that Valve is kind of the leader on the pack for this when it comes to multiplayer games, because CSGO and TF2 now both have vScript. CSGO's had it for a long time, and vScript is a very powerful tool to be able to basically add code to the game, and come up with all kinds of interesting inclusions. And luckily, this incredible power is used to do stuff like give the demo man a Glock, or to play Halo, which is something modders really like to do for some reason. And many single-player games are also luckily no stranger to mods that allow you to change the difficulty of the game or how some of the mechanics work. Even games that are a little bit more on the cryptic side, like Dark Souls, have mods that allow you to change things like enemy placement, or just play Halo. See? And that's the thing about modding, is that modding can do anything you want it to. It's versatile. You can change your game in any number of different ways that you would like to. And that's one of the things I think we should maintain about this functionality. Fun fact, people's preferences are sometimes different. Alright, settle down. Everybody settle down. I know. Okay, it's shocking, I know. But we're gonna have to get through this. And the versatility of modding can account for that. If you want your game to be easier, you can mod it. If you want your game to be harder, you can mod it. Even down to the very finest of details. Like the exact buxomness of your I can't even finish that one. Like the exact difficulty that you want your game to have. And you never know what you might just end up making. That's the fun part. And while I was downloading more mods, I decided to get some stuff that changes around the towns and cities of Skyrim, and also the wilderness in between. I got some mods that made it so that various armies would patrol along the streets and maybe fight each other. I got some stuff that added new enemies, that added a bunch of different flora. And overall, I made the game look quite a bit spiffy, if I do say so myself. And I also got a mod that makes people subscribe. Please. YouTube says if I don't get 5,000 by the end of January, they're gonna fine me. They're gonna cut off my fingers. And that brings up yet another great strength of modding, and that's the ability to make your own custom maps. Now, this is something that's a lot less common these days. Mapping tools are something that is rarely included with a game anymore, especially a multiplayer game, which is quite frankly very disappointing. Some of the best maps made for any game were made by their respective communities. Something like Arrowwalk, which is really weird and hard to say, was a community-created map that was used in many official Quake tournaments. The same can be said for stuff like the original Dust, and Dust is one of the most influential and well-known maps ever created. Giving people the ability to make or edit maps is really useful. Not only can you get community-updated versions of older maps that maybe don't really stand up as well, or the community can just improve on maps that were just not very good to begin with, which often happen to be the same thing, like Dust Bowl. And again, not even mentioning the fact that they can just make their own maps, and these maps can be anything from a really good competitive map to just a place to hang around, or something with a specific use case, like testing out graphical presets, training different skills used in the game, or just cozy little player homes or something. But of course, the problem with mapping is that if you let the community create their own maps, then they might not play your maps, and if they're not playing your maps, then you don't look as good or something. And that's probably why we see so few games actually give you dedicated mapping tools these days, which again is a real shame. Especially considering how robust and how easy to use many mapping tools are. Even something as new as Overwatch still uses like brush editing tools. something that dates back all the way to the original Quake. And what's especially funny is seeing members of the community that for some fucking godforsaken reason keep defending Blizzard in every stupid thing they do,
Other companies are available.
saying that stuff like adding a map editor to various games would be just way too hard, even though it's technology we've had for like 20 years. And again, much like game modes, the thing about mapping is that you never know what you're gonna get. People can create all kinds of things. They might invent a map that makes a new game mode work out. They might invent a map that just happens to be the best map in the game. They might take existing maps and update them. There's a lot of good reasons to allow the community to have that freedom, and yet for some reason very few games still give you dedicated mapping tools anymore, which is especially crazy considering how often games these days suffer from content droughts, which are basically long periods of time in between updates where nothing happens, which I hear is actually a very important part of the World of Warcraft experience, oftentimes leaving the game in a bad state for way too long, causing player numbers to dip until an update makes them rise and then they dip again. The ability to make your own maps, make your own game modes, host your own custom games, alleviates this issue, in addition to having the added benefit of the community just coming up with really good ideas that you could use. It just requires developers to be willing to share their pride and their tools. Team Fortress did this, and many community maps were added to the official rotation, and the game is better for it. A lot of these community maps are better than some of the really old Valve ones that are still knocking around. And it's not like members of the community aren't capable of making maps that are as good as or better than what the developers make, no matter the game. They've been capable of doing so for a very long time now, and the talented people who were capable of making good maps back then are only more talented now. And if it wasn't for Skyrim's robust mapping tools, I wouldn't be able to get all this nice flora and fauna, which genuinely impressed me when I first saw it. And a lot of people like to bring up the fact that there might be low quality maps if you give people access to a map editor. But here's the really fun part about mods. If somebody makes a map, and the map is bad, don't play on it. And frankly, I think the benefits far outweigh the potential that someone makes a bad map that you don't have to play. And I have no idea what leads people to say that this is a legitimate counter-argument. The benefits are astounding and already felt throughout the medium. And lucky am I that they were, because I've been using these mapping improvements extensively. My Skyrim is now more dangerous, more gorgeous, and more featureful than it was before, thanks to mods. And that's kind of the main thing about modding, really, is that it's diverse, it's versatile, and it's featureful. And I don't think anything really encapsulates this argument, sort of as a microcosm of it, than the FOV argument. Now, you might remember in episode 478 of Kaluka Starfighter Adventure that he mentioned that you could open the console, and this shows off the incredible foresight of the author because that's relevant now too. And one thing that I really appreciate about Skyrim is the fact that I can hit tilde, type in the words FOV, and then a number, and get whatever FOV I want. Personally, FOVs under 90 kinda bother me, and anything under like 85 or 80 kinda just strains my eyes. Like, it is genuinely slightly uncomfortable to play after a while. Like, even Overwatch sucks to play after a few matches, and that's on top of this FOV issue. Thank you. No, really, you're all too kind. So personally, I like something around like 110 FOV, assuming a 16:9 aspect ratio. And I think going up to like 120 or 125 is something every first-person game should allow you to do. But of course, I'm not as smart as our benevolent overlords over at Blizzard, who never do anything wrong, and who could never make a mistake in their game. And there are people out there who think that the very notion that you might want to set your FOV to 110 or 115 is absolutely ridiculous, and you should just be happy with whatever Blizzard or Riot or whichever giant corporation full of entertainment industry professionals decided was acceptable for you, peon. But even as a lowly video game serf, I still think that this issue should be re-brought up. FOV is very much a preferential thing. A higher FOV lets you see more of your screen, more of your surroundings. A lower FOV makes it so that distant targets appear closer to you and therefore larger and easier to hit. And many people just have a sort of sweet spot that they like to go in. I personally like a 110 FOV in most games. Mostly because, again, I personally just can't really mess with lower FOVs, they make me uncomfortable. And a lot of people experience the same thing, both at low FOV and at very high FOV. But the nice thing about FOV is that it's incredibly easy to set, it's literally just a variable in the game, and you can set it from anywhere from 1 to 360. Now, of course, 1 and 360, and many of the numbers close to them, are not really viable FOVs. 1 is so zoomed in you actually can't see anything, and 360 is so distorted that you can't actually glean any information from what you're looking at. So most of the time, people are playing anywhere from like 60 to 140 or 150. And 150 is like the very upper echelon. I don't know anyone who actually uses that. But even then, 60 to 150 is a very wide range of different choices. And it allows anyone, every single person, to select the FOV that works perfectly for them. to solve the issue of whatever's most comfortable or most preferable for them, to not affect anybody else who's playing the game in a negative way in any capacity, and to give freedom to the consumer to edit their product in a way that makes it more enjoyable for them. It's incredibly easy to use, it's been implemented in pretty much every single game for like the past 25 years, so obviously this fantastic solution that has almost literally no problems whatsoever needs to be destroyed. Like, sure, this is an incredibly versatile solution that basically fixes the problem for everybody, but like, man, that's hard. Like, we would have to go into the game and edit one number to go up to 130. Like, how do you even spell 130, really? And what's the, like, what cosmetics do we sell because of this? Think about it, guys, come on. No, but seriously, the reason I talk so much about this is because I think it's important, and also because I think FOV kind of exists as a sort of microcosm for modding itself. There's no reason it shouldn't be possible to customize it as much as you want. It's an incredibly versatile solution that allows everybody to personalize their game to do whatever it is they want it to do, and there's no real downsides to doing so. But modding goes one step further by also making it so you can make something entirely new. Modding only works when it's free. The entire point of modding is that it allows literally anybody to download the tools available and to make something amazing. It stops working the moment you don't give people the tools, the moment you completely restrict the functionality, the moment you make modders into a business partner in a grotesquely unfair relationship, where access to either the tools or the mods is hidden behind money, and where the modders themselves are only making 1% of the profit. The benefits vastly outweigh the negatives. Modding handles everyone's needs, whether you want to be at 70 FOV or 130 FOV, whether you want your game to be harder or easier, sillier or more serious, fewer mods or more mods, and it's the reason I was able to enjoy this version of Skyrim. And I have to say, I genuinely did have a lot of fun playing it. It's not a perfect game, but all of these mods made it so much better, and the same can be said for Dota or LoL or Team Fortress 2, Griffball, Mongoose Racing, Sexica, the insatiably horny female companion, 22,300 downloads, PL Borneo, Aerowalk, CP Croissant, or Fistful of Frags, the best mod game ever. That is not negotiable. Anybody saying Dota or Team Fortress or whatever is the best mod game ever, you're fucking banned. We do not take the Lord's name in vain in this house. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. I would like to appreciate everybody's patience regarding this video. It was turbulent, to say the least. And next time we will be comparing Team Fortress 2 and Overwatch, two games that make up quite a bit of this channel's identity. And also, that's a comparison that I don't think can be done justice with just one video, so expect that concept to be broken up into multiple different parts, from which we might bound around to different topics on other videos. But yes, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time.